Hi, my name is Chris, and today I want to talk about videography with your iPhone and all kinds of different accessories that might be interesting to you, specifically talking about microphones, as well as the tripods and the holder for your iPhone. And I'm also going to touch a little bit up on the topic of light. However, let's start with the stand, the holder, and those kind of things. Something that I really like about iPhone photography is that it's really lightweight and that you can do a lot of things with those devices already. It's quite remarkable the quality that you can achieve with 4K, with 120 frames per second. I think you can shoot 240 frames per second with the iPhone 11 Pro. You have those different lenses available to you and a lot more. However, you of course also need some place to hold all of that. And most of the time, if you buy something like a tripod or any kind of other phone accessory, oftentimes they have these cheap plasticky little holders here, which have the benefit that you have here two of the screws for the tripod. However, these are really not that nice to handle, and they are lacking one specific key feature that I really like to have on my phone holder. So this one for me doesn't really cut it, and I don't necessarily love them because I have found something a little different, and that is this holder right here. And I attached a little tripod mount change plate here because I'm also going to show this tripod right here. But basically what this is, it is a foldable phone holder, so you can actually fold both of these sides together. And if I just remove this, you can see that it actually folds together quite nice and small right here. Let's just open this up. So it's folding over like this, and that's really, really helpful. You then fold these open like so, and then you can screw this open instead of having a spring-loaded mechanism. That makes it that much nicer, in my opinion, to actually place your phone in there because you don't have to squeeze it to fit in there. But if you have a big phone, you can see that it's also kind of a lot of work to actually make it open as far as you need it to go. But once it's there, you can make it fit nice and snug, and that works wonders. The other amazing thing, there's two actually, is that this phone holder actually has these grooves here, which is perfect because they are actually TRRS compatible. What that means is that you can actually use a whole variety of different tripods that also are TRRS compatible. Not like this one here, but basically you can just slide this in here without needing any kind of base plate whatsoever. And that's really, really useful, especially for me, for example. I have pretty much all the things TRRS compatible. I have my Zero-E tripod. I also have a different tripod where I have a plate at the top that also has that TRRS compatible mount. And I have my Peak Design clips for my belt or my rucksack that I can also use to mount my camera. And I also can put this here in there as well. The other amazing thing is that you actually have a so-called cold shoe mount right at the top here. So if I open this up and I put the phone in there, and it just takes a moment because it opens up so big with the case and everything, which by the way is also a great thing here because you can just mount it with your case on. And then you have, for example, something like a microphone, and you can actually slide that at the top here and you can screw that shut. And now you have that microphone connected to your phone basically. So undoing this, I'm also going to put that back at the bottom here because I'm going to have that stand on that tripod right there. So we have that. Whoop. Now we can place it all in here. And so this is a tripod that we found because of Nicole's yoga videos that she was doing or started to do with her phone. And it actually is kind of neat because you have these legs here that can extend, and it is kind of lightweight. It can go really, really high. It actually can almost reach my speaking height or my standing height, which is quite remarkable because I have a hard time reaching that with most other tripods that I try for bigger cameras, of course. And I also want to not have them too heavy so I can bring them on travels and hikes and stuff like that. So it's always a great thing to balance between the weight of a tripod as well as its sturdiness and the ability to hold whatever you want it to hold. Now, generally speaking, there are so many different tripods on the market for phones, and pretty much all of them probably do the job just fine. So you're going to be fine with pretty much whatever you get. But just keep in mind that height that you might want to reach, that you don't need a desk, for example, if you want to do certain types of videos. One more thing is also that if you go outside into windy areas, for example, you might not want one that is very, very small at the bottom. So the feet that extend out so that they are actually spread out longer. In this case, for example, the tripod extends out from the top all the way to the bottom, and it's rather big at the bottom. And that's great because that way this thing does not necessarily fall over when a little bit of a breeze hits it. In comparison, if I have my tripod that I use with the GoPro Max, for example, I could probably also put a phone at the top. But what you can see at the bottom here, the feet are very, very close together, which makes a lot of sense for 360 photography because that way the feet are very small in the picture. However, if I put this out and it is windy and I put it on the floor, it is really easy to fall over, whereas the other one doesn't do that very easily. But now we talked about the microphone holder and we talked about the tripod. Now up to the more interesting topic of sound. And that is actually a topic where I think most people can improve with their video making on their phones. Using an iPhone just like that in a vlogging scenario, for example, just talking to the camera of the iPhone. It of course does work. However, it can really go a long way to add a little bit of more tech to this. And specifically, I'm talking about on-camera microphones today, as well as wireless solutions for lavalier microphones for specific use cases. So let's start with the on-camera microphones. And you already have seen the Rode Video Micro that I have right here. I also have the DoD VMic D3 Pro here, and they have a smaller version of this microphone as well. This is a battery-powered microphone, and that may be good for you because the sound quality is a little better than with something like this, which is not battery-powered, and you can just use it whenever you want. However, I also have the Rode VideoMic NTG that I'm using for the filming, which is mounted just out of frame up here. And I would always prefer the VideoMic NTG over the DoD in case you are looking at both of those. But I will have a video specifically comparing these two microphones in the future on this channel as well. So subscribe to this channel to get those notifications when I bring that video to you. So now we have the difference between battery powered and not battery powered. The battery-powered microphones, be it the DoD VMic D3 Pro or be it the VideoMic NTG from Rode, those generally have a better sound and they're better for further distances. So if you are going to be a little further away. However, of course, you can see that the size difference between the microphones is quite significant. This is a tiny little thing, and this is relatively big. Even if I take this off and you only have this, which of course also has this issue that now it is more prone to wind noise, for example, being outside. With this on, the sound quality is amazing. That's really cool. Having a battery in your microphone can be super annoying, specifically in the DoD microphone where it has a standby, but it doesn't really shut off. The Rode VideoMic NTG, on the other hand, actually shuts off completely when you're not using it. So that's really a plus on that. But generally speaking, with either of these microphones of Rode or DoD, you have to charge them. But something else to consider, looking at the Rode Video Micro, this actually also comes with a little foam padding, so you can screw this on here and then you are protected against wind all around pretty much also. These types of microphones pick up a lot of the sound from in front of the microphone, less from the sides and also less from the back. This is more pronounced on the longer microphones than it is on this smaller one. However, this tiny microphone is definitely one for the books because it is used by a lot of people. And I think I've even seen it by people like Jon Olsen on their vlogs because it is so easy to use, so small and very robust. There are aftermarket versions of this that are not made by Rode. They look pretty much identical to this. However, I have never tested them. I personally would always go for the Rode one, even though the pricing on others might be better. However, if you have only the budget for something that is not 60 or 70 euros, I think maybe it is a good option for you to look into other versions of this that might be even half the price. Something else to consider with pretty much any microphone is that you will have to find a way to connect it to your iPhone. And that is actually a topic where multiple aspects come into play. One of those aspects is that most iPhones nowadays actually only have the Lightning port, so you'll need some kind of adapter. Of course, there's this little adapter by Apple, which is a Lightning to a audio jack, just a normal one, and that's really, really useful. But I also will link in the description this adapter, and this is actually amazing because this way you can actually use a microphone while also charging your phone. And that is something that specifically when making longer videos is an important thing to keep in mind, that your iPhone doesn't just shut off and you don't have anything left. Now with these adapters, I already talked about this in a different video that is quite popular and I get a lot of questions. Generally, you really have to look that the adapter that you buy supports the microphone part. If you look for call features, the feature and the ability to use this adapter for calls and also for listening to audio, then you're pretty much on the safe side, because if you don't have that functionality for calls, then it might be that the kind of like the cord in there, the cable inside of the adapter is not linked up properly so that you can't use this. I had that experience and I had to send back a couple of these adapters because they didn't have that feature. Now with this one, I do have that, and the link that I will provide in the description below will hopefully also point you to one that has that call functionality. However, it's not really easy to link to an Amazon product for everybody because this kind of adapters are sold under all kinds of different brand names in different countries. So please either let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this, or look for the call feature. Now, linking all this together, we have the Lightning port that goes into the iPhone. Then we have the charging port. And for this adapter, these are actually properly marked. So you have the flash for charging, and then you have the headphones for the headphone jack or microphone. And now you can pop open or pop this little microphone on top of here. Screw it shut so that it stays in place. And then there's a little trick with the Video Micro specifically, where you can just plug this in here so that it doesn't dangle around as much. And you can see that this is actually quite wobbly, and that actually is audible in recordings when you have that. And then you plug this in here, you have those little ridges. I learned that from another YouTuber, I think it was Cody Warner. And so you have that and it doesn't wobble as much. Now we come to another problem, because connecting this here wouldn't work, and that is because the connection from here to here is a so-called TRRS connection. And if you want to use this specific microphone with the iPhone, you'll actually have to get an adapter cable or a different kind of cable. The different kind of cable is this one. The difference that you can see between these two is, besides the color difference, which is quite helpful to just know which one you're working with, the difference here is that one side has 3 golden parts and the other side has 4 golden parts. And that is a difference between a TRRS cable, which has 3 golden parts, and a TRRS cable, which has 4 golden parts. These TRRS cables are generally made for smartphones, and the other ones are more for proper cameras. Like, for example, if I want to use this microphone with my Canon EOS R that I'm filming with right now, I would have to use the black here, which is a TRS to TRS cable. However, if I want to use it with my smartphone, then I have to use this cable, which is a TRS to a TRRS cable. So keep that in mind with whatever microphone you want to use. You'll always have to use the smartphone compatible cords. So now this is all linked up and you would be ready to go. Using the standard iPhone camera app would work even with the external microphone, but definitely make sure that you are actually recording with the microphone that you plugged in. And to do that, you just start a recording and then you tap slightly on the microphone and then you listen to that recording. Just make sure to unplug the whole thing before, because if you have all this connected, then the audio output will also be sent in here, but it of course can't really play anything because you don't have any headphones connected here. So unplug the whole thing so that you can listen back to what you just recorded. And if you hear the kind of touching of the microphone quite nicely and loud, then that is a good sign that you have the correct microphone. If you don't hear that, you might not have the whole thing connected correctly. It might not be supported by your adapter, or you just have to unplug it and plug it back in and try another time. To be even more sure, I would always recommend to use a proper filming app, like for example the Moment Pro app, or also another alternative that I like is Filmic Pro, which is a very pro app, but you can do a whole lot of things like custom audio levels, choosing the different lenses that you want to shoot with, as well as choosing all kinds of settings from white balance, shutter speed, as well as log profiles and such things. The app itself costs money, and I think the same thing goes for the Moment Pro app, which also supports log footage as well as manual exposure and those kind of things. So just look at those apps in the App Store and see for yourself. What specifically is important if you're looking for a video making app like that is that you make sure that you have audio levels, because you want to know whether or not you are recording audio and how loud it is. So that's a really useful feature. Okay, so now we talked about the on-camera microphones and microphone connection in general. But what about wireless microphones, and why specifically would you want to use something like that? The microphones that I have here in the wireless category, those are actually the Rode Wireless Go. And then I also have the Comica Boom X-D2. And these are very different microphone sets, generally speaking. And I'm also going to make a video specifically comparing the two sets, because I think they are interesting for all kinds of different use cases. But in the baseline, what they are is you have a receiver as well as a transmitter. And the transmitter actually has a microphone on both units. So you have the Comica and also the Rode. Both of them have a built-in microphone. And then of course you also can plug in a so-called lavalier microphone, which is just a microphone on a long little cord, and you can have that, for example, here on your collar, and then hide the cable inside of your clothing, and then have the transmitter on your belt or something. This is another area specifically talking about the Rode microphone. I have the Rode Smart Lav Plus here, and that's actually made to be connected directly to a smartphone. So it has the gray connection with a TRRS cable. So for me, I have to use this adapter from a TRRS to a TRS cable to be able to use it with my Rode transmitter, so that actually works like this, because this takes a normal TRS connection. So keep that in mind. Now, after a couple of years of owning this, Rode also makes the Rode Lavalier Go for specifically the purpose of being used with the Wireless Go. So that might be a really good option for you if you're looking into this market specifically. But then you have to use an adapter if you ever want to use the Lavalier with your iPhone directly and without the wireless component. So you have the wireless component charged and ready to go. To connect it all together, you of course also need the cord here, the black to gray cord. You plug it into the receiver, you turn this one on, and you turn the other side on as well, so they're both turned on. And on the receiver, you actually have a little display for the audio levels, which you don't have on the transmitter. And then you can start recording as you have the audio signal right there. And of course, you also can plug in the lavalier microphone into the Rode the transmitter here. Now, why would you want to spend the $200+ on something like the wireless solution from Rode or Comica when you get something like the Video Micro for like something around $60? And the main reason for that is the location of the microphone. And that is that you can actually use the lavalier microphone here and plug it onto yourself, and that way you can be far away from the camera and even then have the audio quality never really change, because the microphone is staying with you and the distance between you and the microphone is not increasing. A couple specific use cases for something like the Wireless Go, where you have the wireless option to be further away from your camera and also the microphone that would be mounted on your camera, would be, for example, if you do some kind of activity in front of the camera. For example, my partner Nicole is doing yoga classes on YouTube, and she uses the Rode Wireless Go and the lavalier microphone a lot because she's further away from the camera and doing all these activities on the yoga mat, and she's moving around a lot. But she doesn't want the audio to change in between those things and while she's talking in a different direction, sometimes even away from the camera with the back to the camera, because that is necessary for the flow of things. So that's one specific use case where a microphone like the Wireless Go comes in very handy, because you can do all of those things without the microphone ever changing position and staying right with you. And that way way the audio also always stays the same. Another use case is if you have someone who is filming you and you're both walking around, for example, in the streets, and sometimes the distance might be a little more, sometimes you are a little closer to the camera. And that's also a place where something like this comes in very, very handy. A specific use case for the version from Comica, where you have two transmitters and one receiver, would be if you have something like a situation where you have an interview and you want to talk to two people at the same time, or you and the other person, you want to record both of you at the same time. And that's possible with this type of set. This set actually also comes with a lavalier for each of the transmitters, so you actually can hide away the transmitter on the belt and have a microphone on the collar. So that's a really cool feature of the Comica, and that is something that the Rode doesn't do built in like that. However, if you're using something like the Video Micro, that is great if you are vlogging and you're always having the camera right in your own face, or you have it set up right in front of you, and there you also have the microphone really close to your body and to the sound source essentially. So that is very different use cases. For me in the studio, for example, I have a microphone right here out of frame. It is very close to me and the audio source, but it's already pulled away from the camera, even just a little bit closer to my mouth, so that the audio quality is increased, because the distance to the microphone changes a lot about the audio quality that you will receive. There are actually a lot of videos out on YouTube, so you can look out for those if you want to know the difference more between a lavalier microphone and something like this shotgun, and also the difference it makes to walk away from your camera and still have the same sound. I can give you a short demonstration, because now I have the microphone mounted up here, and if I start walking backwards, the distance to the microphone increases ever so slightly, and now I have like a meter, and now I'm back to the position where the microphone is actually positioned as well. So that probably makes a huge difference, and you could hear that. The same thing would never happen if I have this wireless Go activated here, even with the smart lav, for example, because the microphone and the source never change distance, and that way I can just walk around and it never really makes any change. So we talked about the tripod, the phone holder, the microphone and adapters that you might want to need, and why it may be interesting to use something like the wireless or the Video Micro in comparison to each other. Now, one more thing about the video quality that you can achieve with your phone, and that is about light. The thing about light is that you can really invest a lot of money into that topic, and you can also very much invest very little. There are a handful of tips though. For example, a lot of people are starting to use these ring lights, some type of ring light that you can find on Amazon, for example, for 40, 50, sometimes $100. That can make a really nice flat light because it comes straight from the front where the camera is also positioned. And that setup pretty much gets rid of all of the blemishes and shadows in your face, because it is lighting you straight from the front and not casting any shadows from the sides. So that can be a great way to improving your also quality with your phone. But you can also do that without having to buy any equipment, and that is by simply changing the position where you are filming. For example, it might make sense to film during the day when there's a lot of window light coming in, and maybe even change your position so that the window light is more easily utilized for you to film with. Another tip would be to find a place outside which is not necessarily direct sunlight, but in a little bit of shade, because then you can also utilize the sunlight much more, and in the shade it actually is a way softer image that you will get than if you are in direct sunlight where you have those harsh shadows on your face. The thing about light is that the options are pretty much endless, and that's the reason why I'm also not necessarily mentioning much more options right here. I personally have a couple of lights set up. Those cost around 130 euros at the time when I bought them. Nowadays I would get different lights, probably something LED, maybe even a ring light to play around with, but in general you can pretty much get started with whatever you have already. The only thing to keep in mind is that the light probably should be somewhat of a daylight light. Many lights nowadays are this yellow tone. The color of the light is not really that white, and that's something that is really helpful to make a nice looking video, to have light that has that cast of whiteness in it, so that it's a clear image without any color change, and you are represented properly with your own skin color, with your background, with the things in your video. So those are all my thoughts on these different topics right now. If you have any questions about filming with your iPhone, please let me know in the comment section down below what you want to know more about. Maybe I can help you there or make a video specifically about the topic that you are asking about. If this video was helpful for you, please give it a thumbs up so that other people can find it as well, because that way YouTube also knows that it was helpful to you. And if you want to learn more about these types of things and other topics, I make a lot of videos on this channel, and I have a challenge right now to produce videos every single day. So feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below letting me know your story about video making and other things. I'm looking forward to connecting with you in another video, and until then, have a nice day and make it your life. Ciao, ciao.